Happy Wednesday.
Wednesday. Yeah. The moon's in Leo.
Opposite Mars and Venus
Hmm.
in Aquarius,
Yeah.
square Jupiter in
Yeah.
Taurus. And then we've got a Taurus sun and a Scorpio sun here
Yeah.
talking all about it. So have you ever looked at your prenatal Mars Venus conjunction?
Oh, I haven't. No.
It's a really fun thing to look at. I don't
Uh,
know that I've quite lassoed the feeling of it yet, like what it means. At its meat, I think I have to get to the meat of a transit to
yeah.
really feel it sometimes. And that one escapes me more. The nodes kind of do the same thing, I think,
Yeah.
for me, but the Mars Venus conjunction, it's like, oh, people are like, it's the masculine and the feminine coming together, and you're like, okay, are they shaking hands? What is Mars
Yeah.
like exciting Venus and Venus like calming down Mars? You have to like look at it, but the new phase conjunction makes sense to me. So
Yeah. Well,
that part of it.
My Venus went retrograde a few days after I was born. So my secondary progressions, my Venus is like retrograde forever.
Oh, you're gonna
I
have one of
bet.
those.
Yeah. So I'll have to look and see because I bet that it was in Leo.
I bet.
Hmm.
See, it's so much fun. And just to
Yeah.
look at
Yeah.
when things transit that point, if it
Uh-huh.
if it,
Yeah.
brings anything up, I guess. So yeah, Mars, Venus, and Aquarius as we're recording this. We're gonna go over the month of March. And today, when we're recording this, is Wednesday, February 21st, 11:57 a.m. Central, 12:57 a.m. Eastern time, because we can do that in this weird world we live in. We can span time zones. Very Aquarian. Okay, so with regards to March, I'm just going to share an overlook of the calendar really quick. I think that's a good way just to kind of look at it. And then we'll share the chart and talk about it. So this is my little calendar. I put ridiculous emojis and stuff. And you made one too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe we'll share that one too, like as we go through it and just like
Mhm.
look at. I love looking at calendars. It makes me, I think, organize my thoughts a lot more on what does this month look like. So the Sun and Jupiter sextile the first day we move into March. We've got some Uranian things happening in the first few days of March, the third and fourth. Venus squares Uranus, Mercury trines Uranus at the same time, pretty much very close together. Mercury conjunct Neptune, March 8th. I've got a dream catcher for that one, of course. And then Mercury moves into Aries on the 9th, which is significant because Mercury will retrograde in Aries as we come up towards the eclipse. The new moon is sextile Uranus on the 10th, and that's a new moon in Pisces. I want to say it's 20 degrees, if I'm not mistaken. And then Venus moves into Pisces. Now, Venus is exalted in Pisces. So we've got a really good, I feel like that mid March feels really good, but we're also getting close to the eclipses and it's kind of tricky. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
here we go into eclipse territory, but Venus is exalted. Yay. I don't know. So that week is probably going to be, it looks pretty chill. I didn't put any other transits there.
Yeah,
So
that was something that I noticed was like it does feel like a wave that's like coming out. You're like, oh, look at all the pretty seashells, but like the wave is actually coming up and it's like crashing on us. But there's like
yeah.
hardly any other aspects for that whole week. So we have this like nice week of like not a lot of change. We just get to enjoy it. And even on the equinox, it's like feels like a really good day. And then I like that you have work in progress on the 20th.
I mean, that's
Although it's
someone.
less busy.
Yeah, it is. Saturn is the work in progress, right? And Venus, like you said, it's that the pretty seashells, and then it's a wall of water,
Yeah.
with Saturn there.
Yeah.
Shoveling to get to the gold underneath. I always say shoveling crap. That's what Saturn is like. Okay, there's gold underneath, but
Mhm.
nothing's going to keep you from the shoveling part. So there's a little bit of that there, the 20th, 21st. Of course, the sun's in Aries, like you said, the equinox, and then Mars and Pisces. And then not only do we get a wave, we get like churning of a wave, I feel
Yeah.
like.
Jellyfish
Um,
infestation.
yes. Oh my gosh, that's totally it.
Yeah.
And I mean, grab your surfboard kind of thing. That's why the alien's on a surfboard. because Pisces kind of reminds me of aliens. I have a Pisces moon. I can say that. It's okay. I'm an alien. Um, so yeah, lots of Pisces energy, but with Saturn there, which, you know, that to me is such it just almost doesn't make sense.
Mhm.
Saturn and Pisces, it's like I'm trying to form something that is formless. That's
Mhm.
what Saturn and Pisces feels like. And then you get Venus and Mars there, and it's just like confusion a little bit, maybe a little delusion or ripping away from that delusion,
Yeah. You know,
something of that sort.
it reminds me of Eeyore and Winnie the Pooh. It's like
Mm.
he's just melancholic and he like provides some like specifically Saturn and Pisces because it's like everybody likes to be around him. Like they still want to be his friend, but he's just still kind of a drag. And his tail gets ripped off. So like having the Mars there too, it just like it just feels like kind of like Eeyore energy for that week, of just like
Oh,
just lots of I think maybe we'll just do lots of audible sighing that week.
it'll be necessary
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
We do get a little gift there on the 24th with Venus sextile Jupiter. So, like if you need to do anything this month, that's going to be a really good day probably to do it. And what's interesting is Jupiter is the traditional ruler of Pisces. So we've got this Venus sextile Jupiter thing going that kind of, I think, will ameliorate Saturn a little bit.
Mhm.
I'm hoping it will. I mean, that's just me hoping. Eeyore is like, oh, thanks, Pooh. That was really nice to hear. That's what I needed. Full moon, lunar eclipse in
Woo.
Libra, the 25th. Oh man. Here we go, eclipse season.
Yeah,
And then the 27th, Venus sextile Uranus, because anything in Pisces is going to sextile Jupiter and then Uranus
yeah,
subsequently. So I think Mars will do that in probably April at some
yeah,
point.
yeah. I think so.
What are you most looking forward to?
I'm honestly looking forward to the equinox because I was looking at just that day, like the moment the sun moves into Aries. So it's like Venus will be exalted in Pisces, and then she's got that kind of week of just like lost weekend at the beach with lots of pretty seashells. And so she'll be fully like sun-baked when the sun goes into Aries. Aries exalts, or the sun exalts in Aries. It's like Venus and the sun will both be exalted. But then I was just looking at, okay, the sun is in Jupiter's bound, Jupiter is in Jupiter's bound, the moon is in Jupiter's bound, and Saturn is in Jupiter's bound on that day, the moment that the sun moves in. And then Venus is in her own bound, and Mercury is in his own bound. And so just having Jupiter and Venus's sign, and then Venus and Jupiter sign having that mutual reception, and then they're both in Jupiter's bound. I don't know. It just felt like, or sorry, they're both in their own bound. It just felt like locking in and just like kind of like getting fully charged before eclipse season. I feel like we're kind of being set up with a lot of benefic energy, and we may need it come
Yeah.
April. But I really love the equinox moment because it's like, let's plug in new year, like go forward. We're fully fed, we've got everything ready to just kind of go into this craziness with all the Uranus, wildness and all the Piscean wandering, I don't know. That was the one that really stuck out to me. I love Venus and Pisces,
I do too.
but I really love that equinox moment. That was the one that stuck out. What
Yeah,
about
I think I'm similar. Like I'm not looking at the lunar eclipse, and I feel like that may even be one of the better eclipses we get out of this cycle because the full moon and the south node are ruled by that Venus
you?
in Pisces exalted. So, and then right after there's a Venus sextile Uranus. So, it's almost as if it's some things are happening that either we are letting go of and it's good,
Mhm.
or that we're redrawn, attention is redrawn to something that we maybe have forgotten or used to do, depending on I guess personal charts. But that's the overall feeling I get about the lunar eclipse. So even that doesn't put me off in any way.
Yeah.
I think a lot of this is really good. I guess maybe the one negative thing, if we're going to talk about that I'm not totally looking forward to is the ninth, the Mars square Uranus.
Mm.
I always tell people just watch your body around that time. I've seen people like go roller skating on a day that Mars and Uranus are interacting in some way and, fall and break their ankle. I'm just like, Mars square Uranus days or conjoined to Uranus or opposite Uranus, I just lay
Yeah.
low. I don't do anything crazy with my body. I
Yeah.
don't know. That's the one I'm kind of like, ugh.
Well, and also is that when does Mars moves in on the 22nd, so it's not quite at that anaretic degree. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, Mercury is going in. Yeah, it looks like the ninth might be a little just clunky.
Yeah. Mercury and Aries, Sun sextile Uranus.
Hmm.
And these are the things about good aspects and
Yeah.
negative aspects is they don't always turn out that way. A square can make things move when it's been so stagnant, and a sextile or a trine can just exacerbate a problem sometimes.
Hmm.
So I don't always like, if you've got a sextile to Uranus and a square to Uranus the day Mercury is moving into Aries, to me it's just like, okay,
Yeah.
that on the map as something to just pay attention. That's really my main thing, is pay attention on
Well,
that
and
day.
also with Mars and Uranus, they're in fixed signs, and fixed signs, as we know, like to sustain things. They don't necessarily like to be put in a position to have to overcome something. It's like
Mhm.
it takes a lot of momentum to get us going, and to have a shift direction, it can be like messier because there's like a defiance of change.
Mhm.
The mutable sign, it's like, okay, well, whatever, I was going to go that way anyway, but
Yeah,
it's like, but I had my mindset on this one path. And so that's kind of what gets my attention, of just the square itself with those two fixed signs. um yeah, I would,
I
yeah,
agree.
watching the body, watching the body for sure.
Oh, well, let's go to the chart maybe. Oh, here's today. I like today.
Hmm.
There's the moon. See, we weren't lying. The moon's opposite Venus and Uranus, square Jupiter. It's a T square, I guess, with our charts. It can be more like a like a fixed grand cross. I like fixed grand cross. They remind me of um, everything a cross brings to mind. It's like, of course, a fixed grand cross is that. So I'm just going to go to the first. I've got around noon every day
Sure.
selected, and this is from Central Time. So it'll be around that time, depending on where you are in the world. March 1st. What do they say? What is it? Comes in like a lion. Is that the March weather thing? Comes in like a lion, out like a lamb, or is that May?
Oh, I don't know.
There's a weather thing. I'll look that up at some
Yeah.
point. I think about it like that a little bit.
Yeah.
So Moon in Scorpio that day. What was the big thing that I had? Oh, no, no, no. We have to back up, I think. I think we have to go to the end of February to this date, February 28th,
Hmm.
because it's the Cazimi with Saturn.
Oh, right, and Mercury.
Yeah, that seems like a big deal. So, technically the next day would be March 1st, but it's a leap year. So we have the 29th this year, which is always interesting to me with astrology because my daughter was born on leap day. The 10th degree is her sun degree, but sometimes that's on March 1st and sometimes that's on February 29th. And it's so funny to watch in astrology.
Nice.
I know. So this is the day before, and it's 9 degrees. We've got Mercury, Saturn, and the sun all together. Pretty well sextile to Jupiter. I think I'm just calling the whole leading up to spring Saturn and Jupiter sextile. I mean, I think Jupiter's starting to escape it a little bit, but I like that.
Yeah,
This moment feels
speed.
important.
He's picking up speed a little bit, heading right into Uranus. But yeah, they are going to be kind of chatty throughout the spring for sure.
Hmm. So yeah, this moment feels really important to me. And I think when you have a Kazemi in general, that's important. Oh, someone said purging the other day with Kazemi, and
Mm.
I like that. Like the planet is purged.
Yeah.
Really love that. I've heard um, audience with the king. What
Mm.
other things are associated with Kazemi? There's
Being in the heart of the sun. So I just imagine like kind of that trial by fire of, maybe heading into it. Have you seen that movie Sunshine with the guy from Peaky Blinders, Killian
Oh, I
Murphy.
haven't. No.
Like they
Is it
go
good?
in to like deliver a bomb to explode inside the sun to reignite the sun, and and there's this all these scenes of the astronauts going into the sun, and they're just being burned as they go in. But like in the moment, like they're completely charred, but they like find the divine within that, and like that to me, that's just the darkness of a Kazemi, the approaching of the Kazemi, but then on the other side of it, it is that purging the old skin. The planet has died and been reborn. It kind of gets to just start over. Um, so yeah, I like that. I like this the phrase "audience with a king" because it is like being straight up with the sun there.
Absolutely. I was looking at the exact moment that Mercury is exactly conjunct. Yeah, it definitely is 9 degrees. I was like making sure that was right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got Mercury and the sun. I mean, Mercury and Saturn doing it together, which to me says, I feel like this is a moment of commitment,
Mm.
maybe to a higher ideal or something Piscean, a creative pursuit. It could be a spiritual concept. Inspiration might hit, there's lots of different things I can think of. I don't necessarily think, these moments aren't always the lightning moment that, when we're describing it, it doesn't happen that moment, but you might look back and say, oh, that moment was really when I decided to do this, or something like that. Um, a
Well,
sense
this
of what we're
plan,
working towards. Hmm?
I was going to say just my sense of the fact that it's these two planets with the sun. So Mercury moves the fastest. Like
Mhm.
let's take the moon out. Like the Mercury moves the fastest and Saturn moves the slowest. And the fact that they have kind of like caught up at the same time to then start again. Mercury is just going to haul ass beyond Saturn. But it's like the symbol of Saturn being that in traditional astrology being that slowest planet and Mercury being the fastest. I don't know. It's like this weaving of different timings. So I like the idea of commitment because it's like in the moment and also very long term. What is going to be kind of starting again or starting anew that weaves both of those kinds of long term and short term visions for whatever house Pisces is in for you.
Mm. It is so, you described that very well, much better than my Mercury and Sag can. I love it because, yes, exactly. So the thing about that, because we were talking about how close it is to sextile Jupiter, is that's really what March 1st brings us, is the sun sextile Jupiter. So you have that beautiful Cazimi and then some opportunity here right after it. So am I still showing my screen?
Yeah, there
Okay, I
you
was
are.
just making sure. Okay. So when you talk about that Kazemi finishing out February and then starting March with the sun sextile to Jupiter, it does feel like, oh, okay, now we've made the commitment, or we have figured something out about what we're working towards, however you want to put it, and it's time to put it into action. And I guess the 29th Mercury does it. So it's all like right there. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
Kazemi, Mercury sextile Jupiter, sun sextile Jupiter, and then we're off, then we're off to the races because Venus squares Uranus right after this. I know, right? And again, it's the same with regard to Venus squaring Uranus, then Mars will square Uranus, and just these. I like the idea of handing batons off and things like that, and um, the Venus Mars conjunction, which is happening while we're recording this. Venus is again kind of moving faster, and it's going to square Uranus first. Venus being love and money. If you want to make it really, really simple, what is Venus? It's what we find comfortable, it's what we aesthetically like, it's what we love, balance, all of those good things. Intention square with Uranus, which is freedom. So in the fixed signs, that kind of looks to me like my values are in not in agreement with maybe my community or the people I involve myself in. There's just some disagreement there with regards to that. Um, I don't necessarily, especially because Uranus is in Venus's sign, I don't necessarily think it's going to be like something dramatic and bad. I just feel like this is the moment of realization, and that's that freedom, that higher ideal of Aquarius and Uranus, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have anything to add for that. That was great.
Good. No, I'm kidding. Um, what else? There was also Mercury trine Uranus right after that. So, and that's so funny to me that no, that can't be right. Mercury and yeah, no, it's sextile. I put trine on my thing. It's sextile. Well, that's me tripping myself up. So Mercury sextile Uranus the day after Venus square Uranus. To me, I mean, when I see Mercury in Pisces, I always think of floating inspiration. It's almost like a mini Mercury retrograde every time Mercury is in Pisces. For me, I don't necessarily think everyone experiences it the same way, but also a time when you can just reach up and grab something down from the muses and just really space out, meditate, whatever that might be. But the sextile to Uranus is it's like doubly that because Uranus to me is innovation. So there's a lot of this sparky inspiration with this, and maybe coming on the heels of the Venus square Uranus, something has to change. Here's how we change it. Maybe just that March 3rd and 4th.
Well, and even as Mercury is kind of that psychopomp to go between worlds, like I almost get the sense that he might be like the deliverer of messages. So, Mercury is in Venus's exaltation of Pisces, and Uranus is in the domicile of Venus. So it's like they have that reception of just being kind of in Venusian languages. And I personally love Mercury in Pisces because it just feels so poetic. It might be like frustrating. Like I have people that leave very, very long voicemails on my phone because they have natal Venus and or Mercury in Pisces. But I wonder if that square between the two like causes something, squares are things to be overcome. It's the nature of Mars, but it's to propel things forward. What if they have that square and there's like this minor skirmish, but then Mercury comes in and like is the mediator between the two? It's like, this is how we do it. And to do it in that poetic, muse inspired way that kind of feeds into like, okay, well, if we do it this way, then you can take that innovative Uranian energy to kind of move forward because he is ahead of all of them.
Mm.
Do you know when Mercury catches up?
It's like I love Astrology because I can just go Mercury conjunct Uranus, May 31st.
Yeah, we got a while. So the Jupiter Uranus conjunction will happen before that because Mercury goes retrograde in Aries. That's right. So he'll be slow
Mm-hmm.
down. But yeah, I just feel like Mercury might just be that mediator, but mediator in that really loving Piscean sense that maybe it isn't so clear of whatever skirmish is what comes to mind, whatever sort of like
Mm-hmm.
incident that happens between Venus and Uranus, Mercury comes in and offers like this weird solution that is just like a really beautiful offering that maybe isn't expected. Because that's another thing about Mercury Pisces is like it's very unexpected of what comes out because it's not mercurial. It has the freedom of just doing whatever it wants in the most beautiful way.
Boundaryless.
Yes.
No boundaries. Yeah, and I think the other thing with Pisces is I because I come from a very Southern Christian background, I have that in my lexicon, I guess, and my language. And so I've heard the term agape love before, which just means the most boundaryless love you can think of. I mean, it's God's love, agape. So when I think of Pisces, I do think of that. And knowing that, yeah, Venus was square Uranus and what you're saying about it being the mediator, it just adds to that for me, Mercury and Pisces. Like, let me just speak love to you, speak all of this juicy, well, maybe foggy Piscean stuff. One thing to note though about Pisces, especially with Saturn there, is the last time Saturn was in Pisces was the mid 90s. And Pisces does rule delusion. And I really find the connection between Pisces, especially Saturn and Pisces, and domestic terrorism a big thing. Cults were also a big thing back in the mid 90s. So when I see, like, for instance, Mercury transiting Pisces, they come together in a Kazemi first. I think also check your footing, make sure you're not flying off into delusion, like you join a Nicholas Tesla cult or something, like with this kind of sextile there. That's the only other thing I wanted to say about Mercury and Pisces,
Yeah.
especially knowing Mercury is going to go into Aries and retrograde. It's like there may be something to fix, after that a little
And
bit.
and also the sun conjunct Neptune on St. Patrick's Day.
Mm.
That's what guy was like, wow, that's Pisces sun conjunct Pisces Neptune.
I mean, because Pisces also rules drugs, alcohol, all of these mind altering, numbing Piscean things. And so on St. Patrick's Day, be careful, like check on your friends. Like, I'm going to have to stay home, I think.
Yeah.
All right. So I could speak on Pisces forever and ever. All right, so the rest of that week, let me just take a look. I don't think there's it's the moon moving towards the new moon as we go through the rest of that week. Might make a note of Moon Pluto, just see as it's ingressed, if there's a blip of anything. That's March 6th at night.
And also
Um,
around then, the North Node and Chiron, they're still kind of together close enough. And I think Mars, is it sextile those two?
I'm going to make this 0 Aries so that it pins to, there we go. That way they don't change every time I change the chart.
I think Venus does it at the beginning of the month, and then Mars does it a couple of days later.
Sextiles. Yes. In fact, so the 6th, I guess the 5th too, if you want to look at, the North Node, let's see, or really from the 3rd through the 6th, it does both.
Yeah.
So yeah, which is a good thing, I think, especially with Mars ruling the North Node and Chiron, and Aquarius being such a bird's eye view. And this is where I don't subscribe to always malefic. Mars is, Mars can be motivation. It can be passion. It can be the driving force. So when you have a sextile between the North Node and Chiron, which is extremely I don't like people who make Chiron like nothing, because Chiron I've figured out is a big deal. I figured that out. So this is not going to be a small eclipse with Chiron coming up in April, So when we have moments that click maybe something into place with regards to the North Node and Chiron and the healing journey or the woundedness that we have, because it's both, this might be a date to look into that and say, is there anything that I'm hearing or feeling or seeing today that might bring up that specific point?
And also with the moon conjoined Pluto at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we did a lot of Aquarius work already, and we're still doing more, obviously, because Saturn took its time going through there. And then the Saturn Jupiter conjunction. I mean, and here we are now with Pluto there. So yeah, this day does look like we could have a realization of some sort at least, which will be nice for Mercury and Pisces. It needs a little realization there. But before,
some cold Aquarian air and some nice hot Aries fire to
burn away the fog. Yeah, seriously. And that's what, like, I was just looking and I was like, oh no. And then the 8th, we've got Mercury, Neptune. Let's see. That looks like it's more like early in the day, I think. Yeah, it's pretty early. As we wake up on Venus Day, Mercury and Neptune come together at 27 degrees. And that's space out day. That's dream day, especially Moon Venus too. That's really nice, actually. I like Moon Venus there.
And I was looking at, is 27 or is it 28 is the exaltation degree of Venus?
Ooh, not off the top of my head, but I can Google that real quick. Let's see.
27th degree of Pisces is the
Really?
of Venus. Yeah. So that's wonderful. Yeah. So they're conjunct there in the ruler, the exaltation ruler. That's amazing.
That really is.
Yeah. But she she's gonna have like red ears from them talking about her at least.
I love, yeah, this date, it really kind of it would sneak under the radar because it's a Mercury Neptune day. And that, it just didn't stick out to me at first. Now I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow, okay, Moon, Venus, Mercury, Neptune, Sun sextile, Uranus building. That's a really good couple of days there.
Well, and it's like Mars, and Mars is applying to Uranus by that point because
Oh, it is.
yeah, because the next day is that Sun sextile, or the Mars Uranus
Square Uranus and Sun sextile. It's exact the next day. You're right. So, I mean, I feel like this is a little bit of a gift on Friday, and then Saturday, I'm going hour by hour, but that's okay. Mars square, Sun sextile, and you can see that with the red line is the square. In case someone's looking who doesn't look at a chart, the blue line is the sextile. Squares typically looked at as tense and aggravating sometimes, and sextiles as opportunistic and flowing. So to have both interacting with Uranus is so interesting to me because it's like there is a frustrating point and then there's also like an opportunity, and then it's the new moon the next day, just boom, right there.
just like that.
Just like that, which is pretty close. It's not even a full degree past past the sextile to Uranus is what I'm getting at. So that's still very active on this new moon day. And I like it. I do. I think new moons that are interacting well with Uranus are always the time to take advantage of the change or whatever Uranus is doing in your chart, freeing you up from something, innovating something, bringing unexpected changes, whatever it is. A new moon in Pisces sextile that may be about getting spiritually comfortable with parts of our own value system changing. Look at Uranus and Taurus is very much values shifting. And I think we can see that in a lot of different ways globally. What is valuable? What is money valuable? Is time valuable? Is our health valuable? Lots of those things. The Pisces stuff is, I feel like that's when we get centered. So to have that interacting, maybe it's being centered on the change in the world, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like just with Pisces and Taurus anyway, because they have that reception, like Jupiter rules Pisces and it's in Taurus. And so when anything goes through Pisces that Taurus likes, like the moon or Venus, then they just have like this like natural kinship with each other. So in their feminine signs, they're the yin signs, so they're more receptive anyway. What comes to me with this one is kind of that somatic knowing because the moon, right, the new moon in Pisces, it can see Jupiter, the ruler of Pisces. I mean, Uranus there. I mean, I just wonder if like the idea of breakthroughs or like these kind of lightning bolt ideas of just like body health or intuitive knowings, like it. I don't know. It just feels like it might kind of shake things up a little bit, but it feels like, I mean, it just feels like a spa day.
Yes,
Yeah.
comfort.
Comfort and maybe like within that stillness of having all that yin energy. I mean, Mercury has just gone into Aries, but having all that energy and just kind of those nice juicy little signs of Pisces and Taurus. If you have that stillness, sometimes in meditation you get those really beautiful moments of clarity and those lightning bolts of inspiration to do. And I don't know, I feel like it might just be felt within our physical bodies a little bit more and less intellectualized from all these planets now are exiting the air signs to go into the water.
Mm. Yeah, and I do think especially the body connotations of Mars to square Uranus, and just there's a lot of when I think of Aquarius, I think of plans for some reason, not like Virgo in plans, but like goals. Like what do I want to do? And the square to Uranus there being like, it's not the time for that right now. You pay attention to
Yeah.
this, or pay attention to your aching knee, or something like that. And then you're right with the Piscean element there in support, or, whether Uranus or the new moon they're supporting each other, I suppose. But both of those together is like, yeah, this is not the time for plans. This is the time for, I guess, taking stock of your body, your comfort level, all of the things that matter, spiritually, physically, definitely.
Yeah.
And it's not really doing anything else. I was looking, there's no real other aspects to that new moon. So yeah. And Jupiter and Saturn still pretty well sextile. Mercury now well into Aries, and the day after that new moon is going to feel a little busier probably, because you've got the moon and Mercury, just like the moon drawing attention to the busyness maybe of Mercury and Aries, or the forwardness of it. Although
Pluto, as soon as Pluto, as soon as Mercury goes into Aries, I think it's going to be probably overnight on the 10th to the 11th.
mhm.
It'll make that sextile to Pluto. The moon too. They'll both be there together.
Yeah, it's like 8 p.m. that it does it
Yeah.
on March 10th. So right after the new moon.
Yeah.
Yeah, sextile drawing attention to Pluto and Aquarius. And then even at 10 p.m., Venus hits the anaretic degree
Yeah.
of,
He's ready.
yeah, so the new moon's going to be full.
Yeah.
That's a full new moon. Oh, okay. So what is what do I have next? We've
But then,
got,
when Venus goes into Pisces, that's when we have that respite, that week of like, okay, there's a lot of stacked, moments, and then we have that week of, now let's figure out how all of these feel.
yes.
Yeah.
And I was looking at that exact moment. That's March 11th at 4:50 p.m. Central that Venus moves into Pisces. So from that moment forward, you can take a little break, maybe. I do like that the moment it does it, the moon and Chiron are coming close together. It feels like there's a lot of focus on maybe what we need around that time. And what we want, desires. I mean, that's kind of what Chiron and Aries will say to me, is what is your desire? What do you want to be doing? It's Mars ruled. So thankfully we're past the Mars square to Uranus by that point. And then, yeah, like if we go day by day, the moon's in Taurus. That's a good day, March 13th. We've got moon conjoined to Jupiter. I like that. Just looking at how concentrated the energy is and how little aspects there are moving through that week is so interesting to me.
Yeah, like they've done all that work ahead of time, and now like they're kind of just missing each other with the degrees.
And I feel that. I mean, I totally feel that.
Mm-hmm.
So the moon on the, let's say, the 12th into the 13th in Taurus with Venus exalted, those are two good days, 13th and 14th, I would say. Something to note. Moon in Gemini, 15th and 16th. And then I was going to say, as we get close, I feel like it's not even the moment it conjoins Neptune. It starts to get real, like kind of almost circus like as the sun gets close to Neptune.
Yeah. So it'll be like the Venus will go into Pisces, and there really won't be that much change.
Yes.
And like the waves will come out like a hurricane, in the Gulf, like the water like gets pulled back. And then you see all these beautiful seashells, and like nothing's really happening. And then you hear like circus music inside the waves. And so it draws you out even further.
The sirens are like, come to me. I mean, look, even on the 16th, the moon is square to it. So
Yeah.
in Gemini. So that in trine to Mars, that is totally like, I would not take anyone's word for anything around this weekend.
Or like use it as like a great storytelling session.
Yes.
spin your wild tales, make up a second life, like all those things that,
Exactly. When I was younger, I would go to a club and just pretend to be like I would put on all kinds of accents just because I wanted to.
Yeah.
So that completely speaks to me. And I feel like this would be a day that's good for it for sure. Very trickster, very you can pull the wool over someone's eyes.
Maybe have like a costume party at your house, everyone just comes as a completely different character. That would be a good day for it.
Yeah. And I just realized I have a gig on that day. So I'm gonna be playing music. Maybe I'll put a top hat on or something. What is St. Patrick's Day is Sunday the 17th?
Yep.
Okay, so that's the next day. And what's funny is the moon moves into Cancer. So with the sun and Neptune together, the moon and Cancer trine Venus, people are probably going to be partying a lot. That's what it seems like. Moon trine Venus is very social.
Day drinking.
Yeah, and then the Neptunian aspect of it, Pisces being modern ruled by Neptune. I don't know if that's, some people hate that. I like to look at both. I'm like Neptune and Jupiter, sure. Why wouldn't Pisces have two? Like that's fine.
Yeah.
So that St. Patrick's Day is definitely one to keep your feet grounded. Venus is approaching Saturn, which may mitigate that a little bit, may ground people, and the moon will trine Saturn that day. I just don't know how much power Saturn has in Pisces. Just not sure about that.
Yeah, I do like that moon Venus trine, even with the, Saturn there as the inevitable Saturn. I do kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, before midnight. So it feels like maybe the weather will just be really nice. It'll be like the first moment where it feels like spring, and just even if you don't celebrate St. Patrick's Day, it just might be just like a good like warm weather, daffodils, really nice little spring day.
And magical. I remember in school too, you used to pretend to have the leprechauns come visit. Like we would set leprechaun traps, put glitter all around them and things like that. And that's kind of this vibe, have fun with it kind of a thing. Wear your clovers and green. And if you don't celebrate it, do whatever's fun for you. That's what that day is. And then 2 days later, it is officially Aries season. Let me get the exact moment. I like to have that exact. Sun moving into Aries. It's March 19th, 10:06 p.m. Central. So with the moon also in Leo, fire sign, you're right. You were talking about this when we first opened our talk. So this is really good.
Didn't even catch that. It's Mars Day when the sun goes into the temple of Mars.
There you go. I wonder, okay, hold on. I'm just wondering what Saturn, I kind of chase the rulers down. It's like, okay, the sun's ruled by Mars. Mars is being ruled by Saturn right now. Saturn's being ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter's being in mutual reception with Venus. So, yeah, you're right. The Venus exaltation. I'm not scared of Venus Saturn. I'm not really. Some people might make this kind of like a doomsday day coming up. And I always find the buildup. I know it's at 10 degrees on the equinox and 12 degrees is where Saturn is, but the last 2 degrees before a planet meets the planet in conjunction seems to be super arcing up to the culmination. So that, keeping that in mind, maybe I don't think it's going to be, I think it's going to be pretty well balanced, is what I'm trying to get at. I don't think it's going to be as hard as it might look, especially going into the equinox with the moon in Leo. It's very playful. Mm-hmm. Venus may be looking at the wall of Saturn, but it's still very playful. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, and when I pulled up the bounds for this moment, I was just really struck of like how it's the sun, Jupiter, moon, and Saturn are all in Jupiter's bound. So even though Venus is looking at Jupiter there, or looking at Saturn, they're all kind of supported, and they're playing by the rules of Jupiter. And, Jupiter is, he's in Venus's temple, but he's within his own bounds. So he's kind of like calling the shots in a way. I don't know. I really like this moment of, Jupiter is that positivity and that, creating order for all and just being jovial. So I really liked this moment with the sun exalting, Venus exalting, Jupiter kind of pulling a lot of the strings to make the puppet show funnier. This was like I do see Moon opposite Pluto there, and that does get my attention, but even that, it might just put a flair for the dramatic of just that day.
I
Uh,
agree. And I like, first of all, I'm so glad you remembered to talk about the fact that they're all Jupiter's bound because I had forgotten already.
yeah,
And that's amazing to me.
yeah.
And then when you talk about this, I don't know. I know some people have given it a name. I gave it my own name. I call it the painter's knife
Mhm.
because it looks like it can get to, roll out one of those specific lines when you think of rolling a line
Mhm.
in painting and just getting to the heart of something. So that's what I call that. I have no idea what the
Yeah.
proper term is. That doesn't matter to me. I think something gets sharpened with this,
Mhm.
maybe. And maybe it's comfortable, maybe it's not. But I do think that the influence of Jupiter is going to just feel pretty good around this time.
Yeah.
And we're not technically in the eclipse season yet. So we will be as soon as the first eclipse happens, but
Later, yeah. Or no, a month later. And well, no, the
no,
5th,
the 25th.
25th.
So it's
So
right before.
I was looking at that just to kind of see. I was like, well, I mean, I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but this was just kind of to speak to Aries. So I was like, well, what eclipse moon is this for Libra? And it looks like it's the second of three. And then I was like, well, okay, well, where were the Aries ones? And all of the last Aries ones have all been solar. None of them have been lunar. And I was like, that's just feels so Aries to like screw the moon. I'm just gonna eclipse when it's the sun's turn. And that's because Taurus, who loves the moon, had like 4 eclipses. And so last October, instead of it being a Aries lunar eclipse, it would like bumped back into that Taurus eclipse. And I think that eclipse happened at like the same degree that Jupiter had retrograded back to in Taurus. And so and then it cracked me up that Aries was like, I don't need any lunar eclipses. I'm good.
That's such a good observation. It is hilarious. I didn't even think about it like that with Jupiter loving the moon. Of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
Of course. And yeah, um is the one in the fall, is there going to be an Aries lunar in the
Yeah.
fall? So
This
it's
whole time,
only
only solar.
right because it's going to be, yeah, Pisces. We're coming into these eclipses have been super strange in that way. Like it feels like, and maybe it's the missing lunar Aries lunar that
Yeah.
I'm missing that feels like it's already going to be the Pisces ones next. It's like really fast. So, I mean, Cardinal, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and that's what is as we move towards, I think I call the eclipse portal, I guess, eclipse to like lunar to solar or solar to lunar, depending on the way it's going. So it's going to be from the 25th through April 8th, but some people do longer. Do you have a specific time period you work with eclipses? Some people do the 6 month thing.
I mean, I just feel like it expresses very differently, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And just with this, I just try to get like the vibe of it. In a way, I wonder if with this the Chiron North Node exchange, if it's kind of feeding into the absence of having that Aries lunar eclipse energy. It's like, well, I don't have time for that because there's this right here. This piece of the story is going to be so potent. So, I mean, the
Hmm.
thing with eclipses is that okay, a lot of people say it's great beginnings, great endings, but a lot of times in the moment, you don't know that it's either or. And
Right.
say to work within 6 months, it's like, well, you don't exactly know. I mean, there are
Mm-mm.
things that can happen that are so subtle. And this is why I recommend people just, keep some sort of diary, digital or analog. Just write things down, even just like little bits and date it so that you can go back and look. Because it's like if I asked you, like, what were you doing on October 11th? Be like, Or what were you doing in 1991, in April? You're like, I have no idea, or what were you?
Uh-huh.
But if you had a journal, you'd be able to go back and see, like doing like zodiacal releasing, and you look at all those dates and you're like, I have no idea what I was doing, like,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
especially for eclipses, because it's this moment of, yeah, it's big shifts and stories, but they can be subtle seeds that are planted that may take 6 months, may take 18 months, may take longer to show up. uh,
Right.
if it does, if the degrees hit your chart in a particular way, I feel like it does speak to you more personally, and maybe either sooner or louder. But beyond that, I don't have a general rule for eclipses, because I feel like each one deserves like its own specimen jar.
That's a really good point. And they do, because they all are in the context of the other transits going on in your own chart, things like that. Like I was looking back at Saturn and Pisces in the mid 90s, and we had similar, I think the nodes were moving from Scorpio Taurus into Libra Aries. And so there's similar things, but maybe Uranus was in Capricorn or something. I can't remember exactly, but that's going to change the vibe up. So it's a look every 18 years. What's been going on? What's every 9 years, And I do think it helps each time you touch point back to your past and are able to look and say, this is what was going on. It will never repeat generally, but it
Right.
will rhyme, like you said, it will. So I totally agree. And this is very much indicative of why astrologers are like we are.
One reason.
It's patterning. It's like really digging in, and it's I see, for instance, we're looking here at March 21st, Venus and Saturn conjoin, and I'm thinking, when was the last time Venus and Saturn conjoined? I can't remember, but I want to know now, because it's all in the context of our life story, and we have to look
Yeah.
at it that way.
This is
Um,
my 11-year wedding anniversary.
Okay. All right. That's almost what, like half a Saturn cycle.
Yeah.
My brain. I'm like, so let me like, because this is actually really, really beautiful. If that's your anniversary, I like that for your anniversary this year. It's very much like, look at the foundation I'm standing on.
Yeah. And Pisces, at least for my chart, is my fifth house. So it tracks. Yeah.
Of course. Yes. Oh, this is really pretty then. So, I mean, I think, again, I was talking about it earlier, how people may look at Saturn as the wall and Venus approaching Saturn as this kind of doomy, gloomy thing. But after the Kazemi that happened February 28th, and then this conjunction, again, it just speaks to me to something that we're committing to, especially with Jupiter being the ruler of it. It looks good. It looks maybe even a little philosophical, spiritual for
Mhm.
sure.
And maybe it'll soften Saturn a little bit. I mean, we consider Venus, like, oh, Venus is looking at the wall of Saturn, but she is, she kind of brings good cheer wherever she goes, and I can't help but think that she might just soften those edges of Saturn a little bit. So, good on Saturn for like being in her presence just for a little while. Yeah.
Waving the magic wand as she passes grumpy old Saturn,
Yeah, like
like
Beauty and the Beast. That's what this is.
you're right. Oh, that's so great. And it's not interacting with really anything, is it? Kind of, that's Jupiter is
Yeah, I think,
escaping.
yeah.
Jupiter's like, I'm not helping you anymore. Stop it. Leave me alone. I'm going forward in Taurus. And then was there anything else in between Mars and Pisces? Okay, so that same day, the 21st, Mars is at the anaretic degree, Aquarius.
And Pluto and the Sun are sextile.
They are. And so that means whenever I see a planet at the very beginning of a sign and a planet at the very end, to me, it's almost just like that whole sign is filled up with, I don't know, some arcing energy back and forth. The sun sextile, I think, is really good. Um, I think there's probably just going to be some major awareness of themes around that. I don't necessarily think there's going to be any power plays or anything. Mars anaretic, though, can be inflammatory. I will say that.
Yeah.
It can be. And the moon opposite. Crap. I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Okay. That's worth talking about, especially with Venus conjoined Saturn at the same time. Moon opposite anaretic Mars. So, if anyone watches this and we use this clip, I don't know how we're going to use this video. I'm always real transparent, and weird. So, the anaretic degree is known as the degree of crisis. So, take that with a grain of salt. It's not like anytime anything's at the 29th degree, there's going to be some great crisis. But I do find Mars, being the more inflammatory planet that it is, can get irritated at the 29th degree or want to do something or want to finish something, or it's just heightened. I don't know. That's just my experience with it. So with the moon opposite that, something to watch your words, maybe that's Venus Saturn holding back a little bit.
Yeah, and so when is the full moon is coming up soon, so it's waxing, so it's even growing even more. So it might just be that much more of like a illumination of that energy. I mean, Mars likes to move, and
Mhm.
at that last degree, I always imagine that last degree of you're just trying to get out of the house to get on the road. Like you've got everything packed, like everything's ready. You can't find your sunglasses or whatever it is, and it's just that kind of frantic energy of you just want to leave, you just want to get out, and so it can be, to me, Mars at that degree can be kind of accident prone because it'll just like bulldoze through just to be able to move. Mars does not like to be held back because he just has that forward energy. I mean, even just the sigil of Mars is like go,
Mm.
go forward,
Mhm.
pierce your way through. And opposite that Leo moon, um, it's uh yeah, I just feel like it'll be quick. That's the other thing, because the moon will move pretty quickly out of that range. The
Yeah.
moon will hightail it out of there, and then Mars will want to get out too. It could just be, to me, like this is like it could be accident prone, just from being irrational and or not irrational, from just being impatient and just wanting to just get something done just for the sake of it being over.
Yeah. And it's a good thing that it happens later in the evening. I mean, if you are thinking about when it's good to have this happen, probably it's, not midday at least where we're, raring to go. It's nighttime. So could
Yeah,
be restless sleep too. That could translate to maybe the dream world will be insane
yeah.
around
Sorry,
that evening.
it's gonna
What?
sorry, Australia. It's gonna be like the middle of the day for you there.
I know. I'm sorry. Yeah, we're speaking from a place where we won't have to deal with this during the day
The
because I'm
UK will
always
be
happy.
asleep. Yeah. Yeah, the West Coast will be like having dinner, but Australia is going to just be dealing the brunt of this event. So,
Yeah, it's so interesting following the rulers down and how they're all like really, so the moon's ruled by the sun's ruled by Mars, which is at the energetic degree opposite the moon, and then following the rulers down and how they're all interconnected, to me right during this moment is really interesting. Like you said, want to get out the door. And the moon's in Leo, it's like to go play disc golf or something. You're like, I'm trying to go play this game
yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just frustrating. But Venus and Saturn are like, take a gummy or drink your tea and just calm down. Like it's fine. We
Yeah,
know what
because
we're doing here.
so Venus and Saturn can't see any of that going on. So it'll be like
Nope.
they're going to have their own thing happening while this other like chaos is ensuing, just for a really brief moment. But like Saturn and Venus are going to kind of be in their own little world.
It's
Um,
true. And a little earlier in the day, the moon trines Mercury in Mars sign too. Um, Thankfully, that's right before Mars hits anaretic degree. So it like trines it, and then Mars is like, oh, yeah.
watch this.
Oh man, what a funny day. Like, I don't think I would have dug into that as much if it weren't for talking to you, Krista. All right, so what am I looking for? There's Mars and Pisces. Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go. March 22nd, 7 p.m. Mars moves into the non-confrontational sign of Pisces. And it's like you made that big confrontation the day before, so maybe you should just calm down for a little bit.
Yeah, so how do you delineate Mars and Pisces? Like what are the themes and the keywords that come up for you?
My partner has Mars in Pisces. He's Venus, Sun, Mars in Pisces. So much of it, and it's uber spacey. I mean, the a lot of times he doesn't know he's mad until till like he sees it in the mirror or something. He's like, yeah, oh yes, I'm mad. I didn't even know I was. Like it
Mm.
confuses him.
Yeah.
Um, and super creative, super creative. Um, and I think with Mars being such a forward moving thing and Pisces being boundaryless, it can end up being just like particles in space. They're just moving everywhere. And so there's just so much. It's helpful to have something like Saturn there, I think, probably. But also a warrior for like what's right. I find that I know Libra is the sign of justice, but I find people with Mars and Pisces really caring about what's right. You know what I mean? Um, Morally, spiritually, whatever that might be. So that's what I guess how I would
Well,
delineate
I
it.
mean, it's ruled by Jupiter. When I think of like law, I think of Jupiter, like
Hmm.
law, Saturn might be the prison. Like Jupiter is like the organization of people because you have to, if Jupiter wants to gather together, you have to organize it all. An organization of people is that sense of justice and order, and that rules Pisces. And so I could see that. I hadn't considered that before of like Mars kind of being that almost like an activist for what's important to you, like having that motivation to stand up for people, for helping marginalized neighbors, like whatever it is. And it being in Pisces, it could have like a circuitous route that you do that, but maybe having that inspiration like Mars can provide to seek justice um,
Mm.
as a Jupiterian sign. That's a good point. I hadn't considered that one before.
Yeah, and I would say one other thing about Mars and Pisces now that I'm looking at it from the other side, because yes, there's that. And then there's also, I feel like those people can get taken advantage of pretty easily as well because of that, maybe because they care, but like I'm more worried about someone talking my partner into something than I am about him doing something of his own accord, because it's just, I'll try anything kind of
Yeah,
a
yeah,
vibe. So I think that's another thing. And I always say that maybe it is because I have so much Pisces in my life that in my family, everywhere I look, there's so much Pisces, and I see the boundarylessness of it and the porousness of it. And so it can be just very like untethered. And that is, I guess, the dangerous part of Pisces. There's the mystical part because you can't be mystical and be tethered. So you
yeah.
have these very beautiful opposites. And with all of this coming into an eclipse, it's very untethered, is what it feels like. Even Saturn.
Well, and I wonder, like, so in feng shui, there's like this different symbols for all the elements, like squares and rectangles and triangles and stuff. There is no real symbol for water because water just is in whatever container it happens to be in, right? It can be, a bowl. It can be, an uneven or irregular shape. It's like water doesn't have a boundary. It just sets in whatever container it is. So when you talk about being taken advantage of or led astray, it's just like channeling water. Like, how are you channeling that water for whatever house Pisces is in for you? So when I think of, Scorpio rising, Pisces is the fifth house. So channeling that energy into creative efforts, or if Pisces is your 10th house, like channeling that energy into your career, or if it's the seventh, channeling the energy into relationships. It might require, and maybe it's a good thing that having Saturn there too, knowing that you'll have to channel energy after whatever escapade it happens when it leaves that energetic degree in Aquarius. Like now you got to like do a little bit more effort to like hold that energy in.
Mm. Yeah,
not
mutable.
so that someone else doesn't channel it away from you.
That's the thing, because that's what will happen. And I've seen it so much. And it's probably worth it if, everyone has Pisces somewhere, right? To look at that and to also look at your natal Jupiter, probably for Saturn's whole transit through Pisces. But I do think moving into this is probably the first Pisces season, or leading up to it, actually leading away from it now that Sun's in Aries, but late February into March, the first Pisces season that I feel like Saturn's really making its presence known, especially knowing that we're going to have Venus and Mars there soon after conjunction. Um, and then next year, when the nodes move into Pisces and Virgo, it's just going to ramp up. So it's worth it to look now. It's like the first 7 degrees, it retrograded. It's been sextile Jupiter, but as we move forward, Saturn's going to probably make its presence known a lot more. Just something I was thinking about, especially even on the 22nd, this day, the moon will be opposite Saturn and Venus. I guess the 23rd. And that's leading into the eclipse. Was there another? Okay, yeah, Mars and Pisces. That's how we got to the 22nd. And oh yeah, oh my gosh. So does it move into Pisces? Okay, man, the moon right opposes Mars as it's in a fixed sign, and then moves into Virgo, and then Mars moves into Pisces on the 22nd.
Yeah.
Okay. So then the moon opposes Venus and Saturn on the 23rd. That means it's going to trine Jupiter. That's a
Mhm.
nice little thing going on there.
And then
Right.
Venus and Jupiter are getting close to a sextile at that point. Oh yeah, they're within a
They
degree.
are.
Yeah.
I'm gonna see exactly when that happens. Venus sextile Jupiter. Sunday the 24th at 11:36 a.m. Central. So that's a nice Venus. Is that a yod with the south node too? Or is a
Um,
yod the thinner
yeah,
one?
so the south node, I guess, would be at the recipient end of that.
Yeah.
Um, where's Mercury? Mercury's at 23, yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. That just the fact that Jupiter's at 15, the north and south node are at 15, Venus is at 15, just that repetition there tells me a lot.
Well, and that's 15 is Mercury and Jupiter's exaltation degrees. And so the south node there is in Venus's sign. Um, yeah, and sextiles are of the nature of Venus, I
Yeah.
like sextiles. I call them the honeymoon aspect. It's like the first one you make. And it's like there's only like you can only imagine good things to come when you make that first sextile of like think of all the things we can do together. And Venus Jupiter sextile just with that reception as well. But yeah, that I hadn't really even looked at that connection with the nodes.
Yeah, it just popped out to me, just that green line, the in conjunct, and how the south node right now, even though Venus rules it, is not really seeing Venus. It's like, wait a minute. But Venus is definitely seeing Jupiter, so I don't know. It's really sweet, I think. And although I
And
think I want to say yacht, it might be is it a square that does it instead? I wonder what this specifically is. I'm gonna have to look it up. Either way, it's
it is a odd because it's like the idea is that you have two planets that have sight to each other.
gotcha. And then this.
Yeah, but then um they're throwing that kind of in conjunct aspect too. So like Libra doesn't see Taurus and it doesn't see Pisces, but those two we're seeing together, but they're kind of casting that directional point in modern astrology to the south node.
Mm-hmm.
Then
Yeah,
also
and
at
then
the moment having moon opposite Neptune too.
oh wow. This is really dreamy.
Yeah.
Really, really dreamy. Like take advantage of this if you, I mean, I hate to say if you are creative, everyone's creative. You can be creative and do Excel spreadsheets. So whatever it is you're creative in, this is a great day to do that, to be in that creative spot. And I think that even leading into the eclipse, it will be, because the next day is the eclipse. And even though Venus is still moved on, it's not even a whole degree away from the sextile yet. So I like that.
Yeah.
I just like that. Yeah, this eclipse, the South Node, the tail of the dragon, the karmic cup, whatever you want to call it, is not always, scary or bad. And I'm the kind of person though who looks at eclipses. So like I will go watch all the eclipses. They say, don't look at the baleful rays, and I'm like, give me my glasses. I need to see it. So, eclipses to me are not as doomy and gloomy. But I tend to do that with everything. So I actually appreciate if there is a piece of it, advice or caution that someone wants to throw out, because I'm always like, throw caution to the wind, sad
Yeah.
kind
Can
of
you see it?
person.
Is it going to be visible where you're at?
The lunar eclipse, I don't think so. I know we're going to Arkansas for the solar eclipse, though.
Okay.
Yeah, we're just riding up to the closest place that we can
Yeah.
get to, and we're gonna stay for a night and watch the eclipse and go home. But I
And
need to look up the lunar path.
when the eclipses happened in 2019, is that right? Is it 2018 or
2017.
2017? Gosh.
Mm-hmm. I
Um,
know.
so my son was 3.5. He was young enough where I was like legitimately worried that he would like burn his eyeballs. And so
Yes.
I took a paper grocery bag and cut a hole and taped the eclipse glasses in it, and I made him wear a paper grocery bag over his head. And so he was like walking around like a little like eclipse robot, but it worked because he could see the eclipses. So we drove to Tennessee to see it because it was way more visible. But I have pictures of like the crescent shadows on like his weird like homemade little eclipse helmet.
I did the same thing with my
Yeah,
kids, so I'm like reliving it. I think my youngest was like 4 or something.
yeah,
We went to
yeah.
Folly Beach, South Carolina, and watched it. And I was really worried. I probably screamed at them several times to keep your glasses on. Keep your
Yeah.
glasses on. I was so nervous. Maybe we will be able to see it. I can't get it. Oh, yeah, it looks like we might be able to see the lunar eclipse. Huh. I had no idea. It's visible in Birmingham. Oh yeah, I love me some blood moon. I will go look at that thing. I've done it so many times. One time I took my kids to a cemetery close to my house because it had the flattest
Oh yeah.
viewing area, and they were like, "Mom, this is really creepy.
Macabre.
What are we doing?" I mean, they weren't little; they were like a little older, but still, they were like, "You're insane," It's like, "Well, it's the best place to watch the eclipse." Sorry. And this is a good one. This is a good one to watch. It's ruled by Venus. Venus is exalted at the 16th degree of Pisces at this point, sextile Jupiter. Looking at what Mars is doing, because that's where the Sun and North Node are. Mars is really unaspected,
Yeah.
just willy-nilly out there doing whatever it does in Pisces, like
I know.
bouncing off the walls, I guess.
I mean, that's still is a lot of action in that Pisces house. I mean, having both malefics there, having Venus and Neptune now within, 10-ish degrees. I mean, that's a lot of activity. I think
It
there's fewer
is.
planets in Pisces than any of the other ones because you just have Sun and Mercury if you take the points out. Um, I mean, that's a lot of activity. That's still it's going to be, even though it's Aries season, I feel like it still might be kind of like wet socks kind of
Yeah.
feeling, you know.
Absolutely. Or, it's given me, because of the Taurus element here added in,
Mm.
it's definitely given me like, um, I don't know, greenhouse environment too, like just lots of moisture floating around, and the earth element, the planting, what you would do in a greenhouse.
Yeah.
And then of course there is a little fire. Libra is not, Libra's windy, I guess.
And this is Moon's day to have that eclipse. So
It sure is. And, The fact that it's at early degrees, I like a full moon at early degrees because it kicks off those signs too. So like so hardcore, I feel like later degrees, it's almost like a finishing up, anytime it's something is in like, but a full moon in early degrees is really illuminating. So the well, it's on my Venus and Libra. So I'm like really excited about that. I have early degree stuff. So maybe that's why I feel that way. Where is it for you?
It's 12th house. Libra is 12th house. So I have like a 19-degree Pluto and a 22-degree lot of fortune. So it's not really going to be um, hitting really anything much of mine.
Yeah, it's in my fourth house on my Venus at 5 degrees. So of course I'm like, oh yeah, this is going to be great. This is a great eclipse. And then right after this eclipse, Venus sextile Uranus.
In the month off. Yeah.
Yeah, with a bang. All right, so March 28th, I'm looking at the degrees. Yeah, that's pretty close. So around just after lunch, probably early evening, Venus will sextile Uranus.
Can you do the
So
degree just because
absolutely.
I want to see something.
Trying to see some. I'm trying to see some. There we go. Exact degree. Oh gosh. March 28th, 8:58 a.m.
Oh, okay.
Wait, hold
So
on.
I don't know what I was trying to see, but I just started off the month started with a 13-degree Scorpio moon. And then when Venus moves into Pisces, the moon is at 13-degree Aries. So that got my attention earlier. And I was like, wait, the moon is like really close to that degree. And it's like Mars is like secretly informing like all these big shifts, on a mundane level, like being the moon, but it's 14 degrees. So my theory was shot down. 2 out of 3 ain't bad though. I'll take it.
Yeah, but I mean, you have to think about how significant that 13 is though, because 1 hour or 2 hours before
Yeah.
13 degree trines Saturn at 13.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's pretty significant, even though it's not exactly when Venus sextiles Uranus. Venus sextiles Uranus.
He's applying to it at that point.
Yeah, it's like 5, 6 minutes away from the exact. I mean, that's really, really interesting. And it starts. So I had is Venus moving really slow? What is moving so slow? Maybe it's just me trying to speed things up because I was like, wow, I have that written down on the 27th on my calendar. It's actually the morning of the 28th. So I need to change that. At least Central Time.
Is on like 17 days before, so that's pretty fast, right?
Actually, I wonder, I think this has how fast things go. House dignities. Where are you? I don't mean to wheel and basics. Here we go. Venus should have speed. Oh, well, I'll look it up later, I guess, because I don't. Oh, wait, is this it? I should know, and I don't. There's so many pages on Astro There's like 8 billion things you can do, and I can't keep up. But I'm going to look it up somehow and find out how fast Venus is going. I know Mars probably is not moving slow yet, but it will as we get toward the end of the year, won't it? Because it's going to retrograde in Leo. I wonder when it starts to slow down. That's another thing I'd like to see. I mean, the speeds of planets to me are fascinating and how, well, it's not just how much they change, but it's almost like that specific topic goes faster. You know what I'm saying?
For real, yeah. I'm getting a old school ephemeris out.
Nice. Yes. See, there you go. That's
Because I feel like it does really speak just to the nature of the expression of the planet. I mean, like last summer when Venus was retrograde, that was palpable.
yes.
And that was very palpable. And so I wonder, I mean, she has been picking up speed, and Jupiter's definitely been picking up speed. But I wonder, I'm looking to see when she Kazumi's the sun. Maybe you can look that up. But
Oh yeah, I can look that up. That's something I can do. Venus conjunct Sun. Gemini, June 4th.
Like 3/4 of her way before she gets reborn. And that's, oh yeah, that's going to be then Jupiter. Yeah, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love May. I mean, and I think we've pretty much gotten to the end of March, by the way. Like
Yeah.
that was the last thing is Venus sextile Uranus.
Well,
That
just
we,
to speak on it, it's like, so I feel like she's speeding up, but she's speeding up to finish something off. So if she's in Pisces and she's going to be reborn in Gemini, and then she's at that 3/4 mark, it's like she's got this final chapter. So it's like, I don't know, it feels like,
the third quarter square. Yeah,
yeah,
for
yeah,
sure. I mean, it's not the square, but it's the third quarter square to where she
she'll
will
be,
meet the sun. Yeah. Wow. And then even with the connotations of Uranus as well, like you're saying speeding up to get something done in this moment to me, especially with the moon opposite Uranus and trine Venus and trine Saturn right before that. It's just like there is a lot there at the end of March that feels like it's completing, or it's almost like when people sign the letter in wax or something, they stamp their
oh yeah.
seal.
Hmm.
That's what it kind of feels like. I don't know why, because maybe it's that I'm picking up Mercury goes retrograde when, like, not too long after this.
Pretty soon.
April 1st.
Hmm.
Oh, goodness. All right. So we had a Venus Neptune conjunction on St. Patty's Day. April Fool's Day, Mercury goes retrograde.
Can you back it up one more day? So if,
Sure.
what did I see? Or no,
I was
back.
on the 28th before.
Okay, that's what it was. So there's that contra antitia between Mars and Mercury. So there's like that secret opposition, some sort of like tension point. And it's
Mm.
almost like Mercury is like, wait, what'd you say? And it goes retrograde to like deal with Mars.
It's true.
Yeah.
That's how I mean, I look at the planets as characters like that because it's just, I know that I have those characters inside of me. They're parts of my psyche, and that's exactly what I'm getting. It's hilarious to me that Mercury goes retrograde on April Fool's Day. I don't think you could get any funnier than that with Mars in Pisces.
Yeah.
Like, you
Yeah.
just can't. The ruler of Mercury retrograde and Mars is in Pisces. That's
Yeah.
insane.
It's like that Fool card in Tarot. Just like, let's just have this adventure. The dogs are nipping at my heels, but I'm just gonna jump off this cliff.
It's the truth. And then, as we go in, even did I say Venus Neptune? I meant Sun Neptune on St. Patty's Day. I was thinking what's also coming is Venus Neptune, and that is going to be just after, it looks like sometime April 2nd, maybe, which is even funnier that, right there as Mercury goes retrograde, there's also Venus Neptune, April 3rd in the morning at 28:0.
Yeah.
You don't see a conjunction at 28:0 or I mean, any number 0 minutes very often. 0 minutes to me are very rare. And I love it because in Sabian symbols, you read for the you round up the degree for Sabian symbols. If it were 28:02, you'd read for the 29th degree. But when it's 0 minutes, the exact degree, you read for that degree. And I don't never get a chance to do it. So I got to pull up the Sabian symbol for it. Hold on, let's see. Because you just don't see it exactly on a degree, very rarely. Was Jupiter Saturn conjunction in Aquarius? That was maybe exactly 0 degrees or 1 degree, I want to say.
Let me look it up real quick.
Okay, Pisces 28. I'm kind of nervous. Let's see. A fertile garden under the full moon reveals a variety of full grown vegetables. So it's the full satisfaction of the individual's basic needs. It's a symbol of abundance, an abundance fitted to individualized requirements and wants.
For Venus, that's great.
That's Venus Neptune at the 28th degree. That's the Sabian symbol, yes, directly from Dane Rudyard. And it's Moon Pluto that day too, April 3rd. So it's hard not to go into a little bit of April knowing that the Mercury retrograde was coming, the Venus Neptune
Yeah.
conjunction.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, April will be its own month with that.
We're not even gonna get into it. I could look right now and I would just be like, because that's how I feel about that eclipse.
Yeah.
Like, duh. I don't even know how to tune into it really. There's so much in Aries, and we could just take a little look. Well,
And like at the end of the year, I did year-end tarot spreads for people, and so many times, I might have told you this, but so many times I would just pull a card for the months, and then, in April, I pulled the wheel for
yes.
so many people, and I wasn't choosing the wheel. The wheel was just showing up, and to me, like the wheel is like literally tarot. It's like anything can happen. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's all the story. And so I just tell people on that eclipse, just stay on the wheel. You might be going up, you might be going down. You're only going to know on that day, but just try to stay on the wheel.
That is really good advice. Really, really good advice. I like in client sessions, I've just been like, oh, it's a big time. I don't really, there's no way I can tune into, I mean, to a certain degree where it's at in your chart. Like it's in my 10th house of career.
Yeah.
I don't have any big plans right now that would, indicate something huge might be happening in my career in some way, but I'm waiting on it. Like I'm like, it could,
Yeah.
who knows? So wherever it's at, I definitely expect the unexpected, but I mean, maybe that's for another time.
Well, it's funny, like looking at that date. So, as like a Gen Xer and a huge Nirvana fan, like I carved Kurt Cobain's name into my ankle on April 8th, 1994, because that was 30 years to the day that they found his body. And so when you're talking about like the last time Saturn was in Pisces, um, I that date, like I still have a scar that says Kurt on my ankle from that day 30 years ago.
I want to go back 30 years ago really quick. I love this. I can just go boom, 30. Well, it's funny. No, that didn't work. That was 30 days. 30 years, please. There we go. I wanted to see where everything was. Saturn was in at 8
Mercury at
degrees.
28. Yeah.
Mercury, Mars, Moon. Wow. Wow. You want to talk about escaping? Goodness gracious. You know what stands out to me is the lack of squares, the lack of, I mean, there's one opposition, and that's Venus Jupiter, which is not a bad opposition at all.
Yeah.
And I think it's just interesting because I think it's a good example. People expect bad things to happen when there's all these squares and all these, oppositions or conjunctions. And it's like, you can't, it's not that black and white. It's just really not, because this is honestly a beautiful chart. And it honestly also tells me his spirit just drifted into the ether, because that's what a Pisces does. You're already in that liminal space. And when I see people who do go away, pass away, whatever you want to say, people take, some people don't like you to use the words pass away. I'm like, whatever you want to call it. When people are no longer alive and I see Pisces involved, I know that there has been an ease in
Yeah.
that transition. Mars present, obviously speaks to how terrible that moment was, but
Venus and Saturn there sextile to each other.
mm,
Yeah, but that Mars moon, I mean, he probably unalived himself a few days prior to that, but
makes sense. That's when
really
his body.
only the moon would have really changed. It doesn't look like any of the signs would have changed um any sort of dignity. So
Yeah, we're definitely 80s and 90s kids, aren't we? Because I'm like, I will immediately dig into this kind of thing because I
yeah.
just find it
Well,
so, I
just
mean, that was a big deal.
the eclipse date this year just stands out because I remember that date so vividly. Like we talk about, make sure you write things down because you don't always know. There are some days that like, I was 14 or I was almost 14 years old, and I got home to my friend's house and her mom had like written a note and stuck it on the inside of the door because she knew that we loved Nirvana. And it was this whole, like I spent the weekend with them, and like it was like the first big meaningful death of a celebrity that, you know, I felt kinship with. And
Mm.
so to like have him do that, and then like it was like this bookend of a artist's world. It didn't surprise me, but it was so tragic. And so it's just like that date just like is burned into my memory. Also because I have a scar that I inflicted upon myself. Mars moon on that day, you know. I mean,
Yes,
um,
that's what stuck out to me when you said that about where did you carve it?
is on my left ankle.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mars Moon, people acting out. And there were people who acted out across the globe who were fans. I mean, literally acting out, wailing. I remember video of kids just crying and like seeing it on the news and how, and it was definitely an impactful moment on, I think, I was 11, I think, when that happened. So definitely something I was aware of for the first time ever, you
Mhm.
know. The only other time I was aware of a celebrity dying is Lucille Ball because my mom lost her mind whenever that happens.
Yeah.
But it's so funny to think about, like, I wasn't connected. I was definitely connected to Kurt Cobain, you know, and to watch all these other kids go through something because they loved his music, loved him so much was hugely impactful.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Interested to see if anything comes up. I don't know, this eclipse, you know, it's like you never can tell. I look at things like that. Like, for instance, John Fogerty just got all of his music rights back. And I was like, I can't remember exactly what Astrology was repeating, but there was something that was like, oh, of course, he's getting the rights to his music back after like 50 years of the music business owning it. And I wonder, I'm like, is Kurt Cobain going to peak and say, hey, somehow, like an, an unreleased song? Wouldn't that be
Yeah.
insane? Something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you just think of like the Saturn cycle is like, you know, roughly 30 years,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and some sort of Saturnine thing in Pisces, you know, which just feels swimmier. And, you know, when you mentioned cults earlier, that really did stick out. And so like a lot of these, you know, having that Venus Saturn together, um, but even the Venus Neptune together, that 28 aught degree,
Mm.
does also speak to culty things. And I hope that like the my favorite thing about fire placements is just like wielding like swords of truth and like cutting through bullshit. And just like there's severing, you know, Mars rules Aries, and there's severing to it, but there's severing things that need to be carterized and gone away. And so even at that eclipse point, um I don't know. I mean, Aries is my sixth house, so I'm like, all right. You know, like think about six house things, like, you know, what sort of I like to fulfill the requirements before like it's implemented on me. So if I see a transit that comes up, it's like you've got a north node, you know, conjunct Chiron in your sixth house of like illness. It's like, well, it's also like day-to-day work. Like what sort of thing am I just going to put it into and do for my health, and like do like that daily kitchen witch ritual. And I'm going to start it on that day so that I can fulfill the space. The receptor site of that placement will be already full, so I don't need to have any sort of thing placed upon me. I feel like you can kind of engage with astrology a little bit of like, I'm just going to fulfill my own little prophecy so that it's not put upon me, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes. Like co-creating with the universe rather than letting it just, flop you around. Because that's how it feels sometimes. And I'm in a Mars perfection year, so Mars for me has been a thing. I've had a lot of adversity this year, but again, I was just like, you know what, I'm going to start doing something. I started having dry needling done, and
Mm.
it's like some of the problems I was having is just completely gone away, but it's that Mars. I was like, I need to do something Martian
Yeah.
to mitigate this, and exercising and all that stuff. So I completely agree. That is the way, in my opinion. And then so when you think about it during the eclipse, coming up in April, it's like, what can you do, to honor the Mars Saturn conjunction? Because that's probably the hardest part of this whole thing, that and the Mercury retrograde. But, you know, still, it's one of those like, what can I do to honor that in my chart during that moment? Because Jupiter and Uranus feel really good and fresh and new, and like that's going to be cool. The Aries stuff, I don't know. I feel like it's going to be really healing. It's the Pisces stuff that I'm like, okay, we made this commitment February 28th with the Kazemi, and then there's been several things along the way, and here we are at this eclipse moment. And this is the time we have to put our money where our mouth is, it feels like.
And look, the degree of Mars is at 13. It just keeps popping out at me.
Mm,
And also,
right.
it shifts through that 13 degree of Mars ruled signs, but then Mars himself at this eclipse moon is at 13. That is just like really jumping out at me for some reason.
Yeah. And the moon, when we started the month, was at 13 Scorpio. Yes, that 13 has been jumping out.
Hmm.
Yeah, I find this I mean, even the new moon solar eclipse being exactly conjunct Chiron,
Hmm.
exactly to the minute. That is insane. So, I mean, I think it's appropriate that everyone, when you drew for them, got the wheel,
Yeah.
that we can't really see into it. And in fact, we're not going to attempt to. We're just showing you the chart. And then maybe we'll talk about it at the end of March when we figure out all that happens in March.
And just looking at it, I was like, that's really close to opposing my Pluto.
Oh,
And so my Pluto is 19 degrees Libra, 32 minutes. So that's really close opposing my Pluto. Um, and also just thinking about the decans that they're sitting in. So
mm,
1924 would be the last decan of Aries, and so that's the Four of Wands. And like there is some sort of sense of victory with that
mm,
decan. It's not as ruthless as the second decan, and it's not as like strategizing as the middle. It's just left the middle decan, but there's like a sense of like, I don't know, when I see that, it does feel a little lifted up. And I also think, is the exaltation degree of the sun is 19 or is it
oh.
21? No, it's 19 Aries. So that's the exaltation degree of the sun right there.
I have felt very positive about it too, and I didn't even have anything to back that up. So thank
Yeah.
you, because I keep getting, I guess distracted by the Mars Saturn conjunction every time I look at this and the Mercury retrograde. It distracts me from the overwhelming feeling that this is going to be positive, because those two things are always so, negatively viewed.
Mhm.
But when I really dig in, first of all, everything you just said backs that up. And then Mars and Saturn both answer to Jupiter,
Yeah.
who are both answering to Venus. Jupiter and Uranus are both answering to Venus, and Venus is answering back to Mars. So it's a Mars, Venus, Jupiter thing going on. Um,
And I feel
I,
like the continuation of that story, whether it's going to be loud, like just regardless. But then when Jupiter and Uranus get together, what is it, like the 22nd or so later?
yes.
I just feel like that'll be a continuation and maybe even like a leveling up of that story because of that relationship with Jupiter there. Uh,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. And at that time, Mercury, Venus, and the North Node are all pretty close together with Chiron.
Yeah.
So there's Venus coming in and giving that kind of magic wand vibe going on there. And Mars is approaching Neptune, moon opposite, and that's the exact conjunction moment, April 20th.
Mhm.
Oh, 420. There you go. And what is that? That's also Earth Day, right? Or Earth Day is, yeah.
Yeah.
So, which is so appropriate, Jupiter, Uranus, Earth Day in
Hmm.
Taurus, so
Yeah.
appropriate. And then after that, we have the Venus Jupiter conjunction to look at. I'm
Hmm.
so excited. That's going to happen like a month after that, probably, maybe a little more. Um, and then Jupiter moves into Gemini. It's so fast. And that's what's crazy is right now is connected to all of that.
Yeah.
We're in it.
Whether we like it or not. Well, one thing I do like right now is like all the planets are forward. They're all like,
Yes.
let's just all gallop towards this because it's gonna get it'll be busy and then there'll be like a space, but then what really ramps it up is that eclipse in Aries.
Absolutely. And I was just looking, Mercury. So Mercury goes retrograde April 1st and it goes direct April 25th at 15 with the North Node. That's pretty crazy. But what I was looking for is when Mercury hits the shadow really quick before we.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So March 18th, I didn't look at the exact minute, but it's probably sometime around there. Because it was definitely 15 degrees. I just don't know what 15 and what minutes. March 18th, let me see. It was 15:58. Okay, so go back. March 18th. I make the craziest faces when I'm looking at stuff too. I know, I'm just okay. 58. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so nighttime. So you can expect mid-month. So crazy. It goes into shadow with the North Node. So much is happening there with Mercury in the North Node as well, because it goes into shadow with it, retrogrades back to it, goes direct. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And it's something to take into account with the eclipse. Because
Done with something. It's like returning back to it.
yes, it's and I do like to use rethinking with Mercury retrograde, so rethinking, but based on, Mars will be in Pisces very soon after we go into the shadow. So it's like based on maybe some spiritual insight or,
Yeah.
inspiration, something like that. Almost like we go, wait a minute, I need to rethink this
Yeah.
because I've been off on this crazy journey, and it's making
Almost like
me.
that hunger association with the North Node of like wanting to like just, it's like insatiable. It's like the curiosity killed the cat. It's like I gotta go back. There's more to be had. So it's like the North Node is like acting almost like a magnet pulling it back.
Mm,
Um, by necessity. There's something like Mercury likes to go back and forth. I joke around. I think Mercury likes to be retrograde. He likes to have the freedom to just do whatever he wants, whatever speed he wants, whatever world he wants to go in, like whatever direction. It's like of course he's going to volunteer to be the one to go back to the North Node to like gain more information, which is like his jam anyway.
absolutely, completely agree. I mean, I don't know any other planet that would like to do what Mercury does. And of course it bebops around. It's the trickster. Like, that's part of its tricksterness is to, people are like, oh, I'm so afraid my computer's going to go out or my car is going to die. And I'm like, if that happens, you're supposed to be thinking about something. Like the universe doesn't just put you on the side of the road for you to get on your phone. You know what I mean? It puts you on the side of the road because what have you not been thinking about or what have you not been paying attention to? And that's what it's for. If we don't take that time, then we're never going to get better. So Mercury doing that makes us better.
I've been thinking a lot too about the just the sense of Mercury, like we talk about him being the trickster and the fool and the flirt and the communicator and all of these, but he also goes into the underworld. He has to deliver the dead to the underworld, and there's this sense of duty that I feel like at least I don't think about a lot with Mercury, that he, while he is very playful and light and fun, he equally is like that heaviness of being duty bound to like deliver things to dark places. And and there's like a weightiness and a that's why I think that when he Kazemi's with Saturn and to the sun, I feel like that weightiness will be crystallized even more, and then carried through during his retrograde. I feel like he's gonna like get like some real stuff done, and stuff that maybe we associate more with Saturn. But Mercury is small and he's quick, but it doesn't make him any less um dense, if that makes sense.
It
Like
does.
he can hold a dark conversation just as well as any of the darker planets can. And I'm trying to practice. I'm in a Mercury year, so I'm thinking about Mercury in ways, which is funny. Thinking about Mercury just seems like a mercurial thing to say, but it's like I'm thinking about him in a way of like just giving him his like just giving him a bit more honor in that sense of like he does also deal with the heavier things, and the retrograde in Mars's temple back to that north node to me feels like a heavy thing to return to as part of that. A retrograde starts with re, and so I think of like re words like remember, reassess, renegotiate, reattach, because to remember is to attach things back to you that have been lost. And it just feels like heavy work that is like kind of, I don't know. I'm thinking of it less in like that light, fun, flirty way of Mercury, and more of like he's actually going to be incredibly powerful grade process. And I can't wait for him to do it and then like speed through Taurus and then get into Gemini, because I feel like then he's going to take that and then run with it and be the fun, pan like Mercury that we all kind of are used to. But he's just going to be doing some real work during that Aries season.
It's the truth. And I have Gemini on the 12th house. So I totally feel you on that mercurial darkness, that you're speaking of. And the only planet who's not afraid to go into the heart of the sun several times and be burned away, a year. So yeah, absolutely. And, I've always had, I've never had like experiences with Mercury retrograde that I haven't been thankful for. I have had my secondary progress go retrograde in October of 2020. And to the day, Facebook deleted my whole Facebook account that day. I couldn't get them to give it back. Like there was no reason, no rhyme or reason. And it was in Capricorn in my 7th house. So it's like deleted like 5,000 connections, people I would have booked gigs with, who knew my astrology, all the things, right? And I look back at that and I'm like, good. Got rid of all the embarrassing stuff I ever posted. It like did me a huge favor. I've never regretted it, and it's just, I guess the lesson of Mercury retrograde being serving a purpose, taking it into the underworld purpose, and it took all of my connections with him into the underworld, but he's like, hey, you can do this on your own. You can do it again. You're a different person now, and it's true. It was so true. I love it. Oh,
Got into
Mercury.
April a little bit, but I couldn't help it either.
It's just like, let's take a little peek. I can't help it.
April 3rd, April 5th, April 8th.
I know it's really hard just because it's so full. It's that month, it almost blows my mind. I'm kind of giddy about it and a little scared and a little like there just feels like there is this intense buildup to it that I can't see, and that's what bothers me. And I don't know what I want to say it's probably Uranus and the Piscean element of all of it that's just making it just foggy. And poor Aries is like, it's got all that Aries energy, that fire, that let's go. But Pisces and Taurus on each side of it, like, you don't need to know until you know.
Almost like if we could see, either we wouldn't believe it or would be too intimidated by it. I feel like revealing things in layers can be for our own good, and because I'm like, I don't really know what's going to happen. I don't really have a good sense of it. I just like the circus tent is what keeps coming back to me. It's like I can hear stuff that's rumbling inside there, but I really won't know until I walk through those tent flaps of what is actually beyond the curtain.
Yes.
Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe it would make sense if I stole a glimpse. Maybe it will only make sense in that time. I just tell people like it. You probably won't. It will probably get your attention. You won't have to get its attention.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. It's not something that like we're going to have to do a lot of work to discover in the moment, like in the moment, it's going to be extremely palpable, I think. And whether that be global or like something on the outside, which is kind of what I wonder, that's how it was in 2020 when we had a similar buildup with an eclipse in Capricorn, or it was really December 2019, I think that happened. And it was everything. It was like Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, the eclipses, it's just everything in a cardinal sign. And then it was outside that did it. And we couldn't, I mean, some people did predict that, but but I couldn't have predicted exactly how it would go and what it would be like. And now we're coming up to something similar but different. And I'm just like, like after the last time, I don't know if I'm going to even attempt, because I did a class in September of 2019 and I was trying to explain to everyone. I was like, this is really significant. And I don't exactly know, government, Capricorn. Like I was trying to explain all of the things and I know all of the keywords, and those keywords became a thing. I mean, government, lockdown, well, these things, but putting it together enough to have a picture of is all it's, I just don't, like you said, I don't know if we're meant to. So,
Yeah. Well, I mean, astrology can be so abstract because it speaks to all of life, and there's a lot of vocabulary words when you describe life. So you can sometimes I feel like trying to delineate things can be like just a Mad Lib, like an astrology Mad Lib. It's like enter noun for this transit. Like it could be like a lot of different nouns, and so to fill that out, I feel like maybe I should make some eclipse Mad Libs for people to fill out and just see if they come true, like as little oracle paperwork.
Oh my gosh.
Um,
Do you know how good of an idea that is? Just making sure you're aware.
but so what I feel like if you do want, if you do want to peek, I think tarot for me, it speaks more personally to just your story.
Mm.
And so if you want to do it for yourself, like pulling an eclipse spread, like even if it's just 3 cards, like how am I gonna, like where am I coming from? What's it gonna teach me and what will I glean? Or, show me before, during, and after, or whatever it is. I feel like it
Hmm.
might just speak to you personally. You might get a little hint, if you want to know.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Just because I feel like I need to. And I'm definitely not fluent enough. I still have to go look up the card and like I'm trying to get better at it. But it's one of those things that I'm just trying to let wash over me every time I do it. So that just like I did astrology, but
Because
it
it's visual, it's like speaks to you in a different way. The abstractness of astrology, it's like, okay, well, here's a circle with lines, and then here's all these sigils, and then here's all these aspects. It's like it's hard to like visualize your life within the story. And
mm,
you see like the moon card, and you can immediately kind of empathize with that, the person walking with their head down into kind of like the darkness, and it will conjure up this visual memory of whatever's going on for you in a way that astrology, I love astrology, and if I had to give one up, I would give tarot up in a hot minute and keep astrology, but it's harder to grasp your story in it sometimes. So whenever I find myself in that, like, I don't know, like literally, like I have like papers like all over the place. I don't know. I'm just gonna like look at some pictures and see and get out of my own head and into just like my somatic response to a visual, because I feel like it
mm,
just helps the story move along a little bit better.
for sure. Yeah, and I'm gonna do that as soon as I get off this call because it's like it's eating at me, and it has been.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like I think that's part of the thing. Like I used to have weekly customers. I don't anymore because it just was too much. And for them too. And I think that's where I got with it. It's like you can go every week if you want and ask and ask and ask and ask and ask. And it's like sometimes you're never gonna figure it out until the moment, like you're not meant to know. And sometimes you'll get little glimpses and it will help, but definitely it's one and done. Like if I'm going to pull this spread, I will pull one and I won't pull another until the eclipse.
Yeah,
I love it.
I pulled eclipse cards in October because I felt called to, because eclipses give like this, they seem like harbingers of doom sometimes,
It definitely can.
I pulled eclipses for people and just like, I don't know who these people, I didn't know most of them. And I just pulled and like read it and like sent them the recording. And for the most part, it hits spot on. Because I just feel like I don't know, it's helpful. It's helpful if you feel unempowered in your own situation, especially.
Yeah, for
Like,
sure.
somebody just tell me what's going on, just a little bit. And don't talk to
Right.
me about Uranus and all this. Like, just tell me what the hell is going on. And I think tarot is helpful in that way. So
I think you're right. I think now you have like a sound bite for your Instagram or something, because that's right. Like you sold me. Like I was like, yes, you're so right. This was fun. I'm gonna start
yay. Yeah.
recording.
Hi, I'm Krista. You can find me as Practical Astros on Instagram and Twitter and now Facebook. It's funny that you deleted your Facebook. And I'll pass it over to Mandi Ray.
Mandi Ray, you can find me at ecstaticastrology.com or ecstatic astrology on any of the platforms. I think I might be ecstatic astro on something, but either way, you can find me. It'll be on my website. So this is so much fun. Thank you.